Imagine you are one of the first 6 human beings to reach the surface of Mars. You landed just a few hours ago. The whole crew is suited up, helmets are on, the hatch is blown, and you each start backing down that ladder, the 10 feet down to the Martian surface. As you put your feet in the red, dusty soil, you're experiencing gravity for the first time in 6 months. So each of you make it down the ladder, start exploring about, when all of a sudden you hear a loud thud and a groan, and you look around, and your last crewmate, Jason, has fallen down that ladder. He's at the bottom and with his boot caught in the last rung at a sickening angle. 15 minutes later, your physician crewmate confirms your worst fears. Jason, a healthy, fit 45-year-old astronaut, has broken his hip. Is this possible? I'll come back to that. I'm going to ask you to imagine a different scenario. You're in the hospital at the bedside of your beloved 85-year-old father. He was rushed there after taking a terrible fall at home. And after talking with his physician, you've learned that he too has experienced a hip fracture. And he faces a number of months of serious rehabilitation. The statistics facing patients over the age of 60 who suffer a hip fracture are fairly grim. Only 1 in 2 will fully regain the function they had before that fracture. Only 1 in 4 will enter a nursing home within that first year. And 1 in 4 will die, usually of complications related to prolonged immobility, like pneumonia. So, are these 2 scenarios related? Is there something we can learn from the very few humans who experience spaceflight that can apply to the 300,000 Americans every year who suffer a debilitating hip fracture? Yes, there are many, but let me share with you just a few tonight. First, we need to take full advantage of the non-invasive imaging technology that can really accurately predict risk of fracture. The same DEXA scans that you can get in your doctor's office to quantitate your bone density were taken on mere cosmonauts before and after their missions of anywhere from 4 to 6 months, and demonstrated they lost bone density at a rate 10-fold faster than your average postmenopausal woman does here on Earth. A few years later, 13 American crew members on International Space Station volunteered to have CT scans taken of their hips before and after their 6-month missions. This more sophisticated 3-dimensional data that we get from CT scans can be used by engineers in sophisticated computer models to estimate strength of any 3D structure. In this case, they applied it to the femoral neck. It's that part of the femur close to the hip joint, which is actually what breaks, typically, in hip fractures. Applying these analyses, they demonstrated a 15% reduction in the strength of the femoral neck over 6 months spent in space. Astoundingly, that 15% is 1/2 of the 30% loss seen by your average Caucasian woman over 60 years of aging. So it's very clear that the bone loss incurred during 6 months in flight could make a healthy, fit 45-year-old male very susceptible to a serious fracture. So what are our takeaway or a second important lesson can be gleaned, or many lessons can be gleaned from the research we can do on small animal models here on Earth, which is what my lab here at Texas A&M in the Department of Health and Kinesiology, in collaboration with my colleague Harry Hogan in mechanical engineering, has been focused on for the last 20 years. For example, we tested the impact of combining a common osteoporosis medication called alendronate with exercise in testing its efficacy in diminishing the bone loss we see during prolonged non-weight bearing. To our surprise, the combined treatment was no more effective than exercise alone for the outcomes we measured. And in fact, the animals that received the alendronate medication also showed a mitigated or blunted increase in bone formation rate that we typically see with the exercise. So this is an area that clearly needs more investigation. So what are some take-home messages here? Well, first, absolutely take advantage of the low-cost, non-invasive imaging that is available in many doctors' offices to assess your fracture risk. Amazingly, only 2 out of 10 patients over the age of 50 who are treated for a fracture are referred on for that bone density test. So if this happens to you, be sure to insist on that simple low-cost test. Bone loss is preventable, and fractures are not inevitable. And lastly, as we well know now, do your very level best to avoid prolonged periods of non-weight bearing or bed rest, because now we know it's absolutely bad to the bone.